What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. Tonight, we have another Christmas movie swap, the second I guess it's a short lived series because Christmas is almost here. And I'm excited to talk to tonight's guest because if you've heard me on other people's shows talking about tonight's guest, then you know that I hold this person in high regard when it comes to just their cinematic intelligence. And they also have a great channel of their own. So I'm talking about none other than Celeste de la Cabra. How you doing, Celeste?
I am doing wonderfully. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, and glad you were able to make it. And as you heard in the intro, I talked about your cinematic intelligence. So my first question for you is, where do you think it comes from, and if you think you even have it? Because I know a lot of people sometimes don't realize certain things about themselves.
Hmm.
Um, but I think you've heard it enough from other people that you
Yeah.
may realize it. And it's mostly a lot from older guys like me who, when we were your age, we didn't have anywhere near the vocabulary for movies that you have. So where do you think that comes from?
Um, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me to like talk myself up like this, but I do like, you do hear it enough times and you're like, okay, I think there is maybe something there. Um, I I don't know. I've always been just a fairly analytical and articulate person in general. Getting a degree in like political science probably helped. You have to write a lot of papers, and the way my brain works, I had to do them very quickly and under a lot of pressure because I don't know, something about my brain makes me procrastinate until the last second, and so it just kind of kicks into high gear. And then in terms of the actual like knowledge, I don't know. I think it just comes from a sort of obsession. Like I just go all in when I'm like really into something, and I'm always sort of dissatisfied by like the surface level on any given thing. Like music was my big thing before I super got into films. And I was always looking for like the next thing, like the next discovery, the weirder genre or artist that I could kind of challenge myself to understand. And I kind of do that here too. And so it's just I don't know, it's just kind of natural to me to just be always because it just really interests me. Like it's something I'm very passionate about naturally. So it's easy for me to just always be thinking and reading about it. And I try to watch one or two movies a day just to kind of always be experiencing something new or revisiting something under like a new perspective. Um, and again, I'm always just trying to challenge myself to like go a little bit deeper or try something that maybe would be uncomfortable or um, yeah, I don't know. I think the thirst for discovery kind of creates a lot of learning in that process.
Okay. So on the flip side of that, then, do you find that you sometimes annoy your real life friends when you're being analytical
Uh,
about things?
that's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm the type of person that doesn't have a ton of like close friends. I have a lot of like acquaintances that like I know a lot of people, I guess, and then I have
Right.
like the people I'm super close with. Like something about how I've always been like I can kind of tell pretty quickly if like somebody gets me or not, or like is going to understand how I am or whatever. And like I kind of surround myself with people who sort of get it. But if I'm in like the office or something, like for the day job, like people are generally taken aback. I don't know.
I get it, and I ask because I understand it. I get it. Sometimes it happens to me. I get it. Um, so my next question: you put out a big video yesterday, I think, about vinegar syndrome. So what is it about vinegar syndrome? And keep in mind that you're talking to someone who doesn't have any vinegar syndrome in their collection.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to that element of discovery that kind of fuels my fire and like makes me the most excited. Like I just got in the mail the other day their new Lost Picture Show set of like the 10 films that they had completely that were considered completely lost that they found throughout the years that they've compiled into a box set. And so
Hmm.
that's like the true definition of a blind buy because not only have I not seen these movies, nobody has, and like they're kind of just asking us to take a gamble on 10 films that really, I mean, aside from a handful of people who worked on them and maybe a handful of people who saw them when they first came out, like these are films that have not been available at all. And so I just think it's interesting. Like there was a moment yesterday where I was showing my girlfriend the set, and she was like, "I think you're good to watch. You don't need me to be there to watch those. If you watch those without me, I'll be okay." And I'm just like, that's an interesting difference in perspective there. Or like, I think it takes a certain type of person to get really excited about a set like that, and I think that that person
Okay.
is me. I don't know. Like they just have really because I was super into Criterion first, which is kind of
All
funny.
right.
We're kind of talking about like opposite ends of the spectrum here. But I think I see a connection in that they're both sort of outsider art. Like we kind of have super um, dense and thoughtful art house films versus like super schlocky or sleazy or low budget or exploitative like horror films. Like
Hmm.
neither of those things are for the average person. They're both like an acquired taste in their own ways. And the more I get into Vinegar Syndrome, the more I learn about filmmaking and about different genres and countries because they really are adventurous in the output that they do. Like the video I put out yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, it was two Brazilian films, four Mexican films, and a German film. That was the slate for the month. Um,
Right.
that type of like foreign output is typically something you associate with like Criterion or something, right? Like a lot of artsy French films or whatever.
Right.
Um, And so I just and not only do the films they put out really interest me, even if they're bad, like I'll at least get something out of it. It'll be like a new experience for me. Like in the next video I'm gonna do on the September slate, there is a real stinker on there, but like I still got something out of the experience, you know?
Oh yeah. Lots of
And
bad movies we get lots of things from.
yeah, um, and not only do they have like a really interesting, excuse me, curation, but like maybe it's just because I'm so immersed in their releases because I've committed to reviewing all of them, but like I don't know, I've become increasingly disappointed with Criterion because I see how little effort they're putting into like special features and stuff when like Vinegar Syndrome for like a fairly average slasher film will do like two brand new commentaries, a feature length documentary, the director's other films, a brand new restoration in 4K. Like they just treat like what have historically been very marginalized films with such like love and respect. Um, yeah, I don't know, and like that's just something that I'm really on board with and I really identify with.
Yeah,
I don't know,
and
it's
like I
just
said,
really
I
cool.
don't have any Vinegar Syndrome in my collection, but when I read through their list of titles, for me, it's a bunch of movies that I saw late night on cable 30
Hmm.
years ago. A lot of time, it's like, wow, that now has a 4K. That's amazing. And it's like, well, maybe I'll get this, but then there's some other movie that I need to get that first, and then I just never get around to it. So maybe one of these days I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole. You mentioned your girlfriend, so I have to ask this question. Another one of the videos that you often do now, over the last couple of months at least, anyway. You have gone the Ken route, and you've done the audits. And for me, there's nothing more terrifying to me than sitting down with my significant other and going through every purchase for the month. So why subject yourself to that? Why do that?
Um, it's mainly for me, to be completely honest.
Okay.
It's that might sound strange, but since I got into this, I how do I answer this question without really oversharing? I since the beginning of the pandemic, which is when I really got into collecting films. Um, Before that, my big thing was going to shows all the time, like seeing all the different live music that was in town. Um,
Mhm.
and as you can imagine, that's a large investment of both time and money to be doing that multiple times a week. and then I couldn't.
Right.
So suddenly, I always feel funny saying this because it's such an interesting problem to have, but I just had all this time and money that I didn't know what to do with because it was being allocated to something I couldn't do anymore. Um, and so I just kind of dove really hard into collecting films, and like I'm sure I'm not the only person who's had a tough go of it mental health wise throughout this pandemic and just in
Hmm.
general. Like I am a person who struggles with a lot of different mental health issues, and I'm pretty open about that. But especially when like I kind of really got into this hobby and this thing that was bringing me a lot of joy and giving me a lot of like instant gratification to like buy something and have it show up in the mail and everything, like I think I started leaning on that a little too hard, and like my spending was outpacing not just my income, but like what I could even reasonably fit in my house or like take the time to watch. Like I have, well, I keep a list on Letterboxd of everything in my collection, and I think I'm at 53% watched,
Hmm.
which when you're talking about 2,500 films, that's a lot of unwatched films in my collection, you know?
Yeah, I know. I do the same thing with Letterboxd. I know.
It's so that number is a little bit embarrassing, but it is also like exciting for me. Like that's a lot of discovery ahead of me, you know? And
Right.
so just I've always been a person that keeps track of all of my spending to the cent, and I like break it down in categories and everything. And so I was fully aware of how much money was going into this and how unsustainable it was. And so I was just kind of like, when I saw Ken doing the videos, one, it made me feel better because I wasn't the only one overspending. And honestly, I mean, you can watch my videos and see the numbers. He spends a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
But of course, everybody's situation is different. That's not a statement of judgment at all. But I just knew that I had a problem, and I knew that I needed some kind of public accountability to fix it for myself. And like,
Okay.
I just thought that was such a brilliant idea when he did it. I was like, this is like the most entertaining thing I watch all month. And like, it it's just a great idea, and like I didn't want to just steal it. Um, I mean, I did, but I didn't want to do it without credit. So I messaged him and I was like, "That's such a great idea. I kind of want to do the same thing, but I don't want to just like jack your shit." And he was just like, "No, go for it. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see you do it." I was like, "Cool.
Yeah.
I got his
I don't know.
blessing. I'm stealing the idea. It's great."
Yeah. I don't know if you saw his last audit. He's actually
I did.
giving it up, at least for the time
Yep.
being.
I have to carry the torch on that one.
There you go. All right, let's see who's hanging out with us. And we'll start with the caveman's first one in. And he says, "Hey there, everyone. Please slay the like for these beautiful people. Thank you, caveman. I appreciate it."
Starting off with a strong one.
Yep. Steve Moody is here. Howdy. He says, "Howdy." Adrian James also here, as always. Says, "Hello there, Dell and Celeste." Hello there, Adrian. Mika's in the house. What's going on, Mika? She says, "Hey."
Mika, good to see you.
And specifically says hi to you.
Thank you.
So I'll take the first one. I got everyone from the first one and a Celeste for the second one. I'm gonna feel jealous, Mika. So I didn't get a high, but that's okay. You're here. Spicy is here. He says, "What's up, Dell and Celeste?" And Emmett, Emmett's got a question as always. He says, "Do you think Avengers: Infinity War what was a bit better than Avengers: Endgame?" Endgame. I'm assuming that's supposed to say was a bit better. Do you have an opinion on that one way or the other?
I have not seen either of them, so I don't
Okay.
know.
I have. I've seen both, and I honestly think Infinity War is vastly superior to Endgame, but that's just me.
Just
And
elaborate.
we have Kira's here. Kira also. Hey, Kira, how you doing? So both twins are in the building tonight. Really appreciate it. All right, and looks like we're all caught up at least for now. I got my hey from Mika. Thank you, hey, thank you, Mika. So we're all caught up to who's hanging out. If anybody else comes in, I appreciate it. Everybody that's here, yes, subscribe to each other. Lots of content creators in the chat as always. And of course, subscribe to Celeste. And if you like what you hear tonight, subscribe to me. And one last one for Emmett. We're gonna move on past it and go ahead
It's both
with
and
the
neither. It's whatever you want it to be.
there you go. So Celeste, go ahead and introduce the people to the movie that you had me watch. I'm gonna go big screen for you. So, and there you go.
Yeah, so I gave you a list of 10 sort of like a mix of traditional and sort of outside the box Christmas films, and I thought it was really fun that you picked the most depraved one on the list. But we're talking about the film Inside from 2007. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it because I don't think it's on Blu-ray yet, but Second Sight just announced it, so I'll probably grab that when that comes out. There is a remake that I almost watched on accident when I was doing my rewatch of this, but this is the one from France, 2007. Um, it's a new French extremity film about a woman who is in a car accident as she's like 9 months pregnant, and her husband passes away in the accident. Um, and so the day before she is due to induce labor, a mysterious woman uh, tries to get in the house and has intentions of stealing her baby. And um, it's a fun, good time. No bad vibes whatsoever. It's family fun, holiday cheer, all the way down. I think is a fair way to characterize it.
I'm laughing at the last part there about the family fun. Because I was not okay by the time this movie was over. Let me just put that out there right at the right at the start. I was not okay. We'll get into why
Mhm.
as we move along. Um, just so anybody in the chat hasn't seen it knows that this all takes place on Christmas Eve.
It does.
That's why it's a Christmas movie. um, so right off the bat, we like you said, there's this big car accident right to be well, we don't see the car accident, we see the aftermath of the accident. And yeah, she's about to have labor induced, as you said. And before anything happens, what do you think of her state of mind before anything happens, as far as the rest of the plot goes, before we get to the other woman coming into the picture?
Um, she strikes me as being like in the beginning of the film, she's very stoic and very like closed off from connecting with other people. Like I think that she has just experienced something really horrific and traumatic and like kind of my worst nightmare, and also she's kind of saddled with like this commitment that was originally going to be two people and now it's just one, you know. It's something that she has to take on all her own. And so I think people are perhaps overcorrecting in trying to be helpful and trying to be kind and trying to be there for her, when it seems to me like the way that she needs to grieve and the way that she needs to process this is to have some space and have some time to herself. So she comes off like very standoffish and very angry, but also like there's that one woman at the beginning who just starts smoking cigarettes next to her and is just like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I was in labor for 15 hours and then the baby didn't even live. It fucking sucked. Like, you're gonna have a bad time. And she's just like, what's she and I think everyone watching is just like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I was watching it like, real that's where we're going with this? That's what you're gonna say right now?
mhm,
And for me, it was, kinda the same things that you're saying, but it was more, like, reticent to even have a baby at all because
mhm,
she knew, like you said, there was not gonna be as many people in the family as there would have been a few months prior.
yeah,
And it was like, I'm only doing this because I have to at this point, not
mhm,
because I want to, in any way. And yeah, eventually, the other person shows up. She actually does pretty smart things. She calls the police right away, and the police come out. They really don't have anything to go on, so they don't really do much of anything because she's like, yeah, it's just a woman. She's out there, but they don't really have anything to go on, so they kind of go on about their merry way. Woman comes back around, and at this point, it becomes a home invasion flick, where the woman is trying to get into the house, and it gets really violent really fast. As far as um, if you can put yourself back in the mindset of your first time ever seeing it, you know, how how did that affect you, or did not necessarily affect you, but were you ready for that?
so when I watched it, I was definitely aware of the new French extremity like movement or genre. It had been something that intimidated me a bit, but I knew that I wanted to kind of dive in somewhere. I can't remember if this was, I think it must have been the first film of that stuff, because it was well before I saw Martyrs or High Tension or anything like that. Um, and so I was definitely really nervous because, like, I feel like I have a bit of a reputation for covering like extreme stuff, but I
Mhm.
honestly do have like a fairly like I am sensitive to that stuff. Like I think I am like a very naturally empathetic person, and so it can be difficult for me to watch stuff like that. If it's realistic and not like campy or fun or something like that.
Right.
So I was kind of you know like I was already like bracing myself going into it, knowing the reputation and everything. And I think it maybe didn't uh, get me as much as I thought it was going to because there's some fairly goofy CGI shots of like the baby that kind of break up that kind of tension and are just kind of silly. And like the film is extremely violent, but in a way that is, I don't know, it almost borders on cartoonish at a certain point. Um, Although there are definitely a few scenes that made me wince then and definitely made me wince again when I watched it last night. Um, I gotta say though, this time around, last night when I watched it, this film is fucking scary. Like to the extent that it didn't scare me the last time I watched it. I don't know. There's something about the way that she just completely disregards her sense of like security or safety and just it's effective in how it like utilizes shadows and backgrounds and things like that, you know.
Yeah, it does. It's very effective in that way, and really setting up the one who comes in. Sarah is our main character, by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen it, and the other woman who comes in is only credited as La Femme. Um, and it sets her up like a almost like a Michael Myers type character, almost, uh, where they're just kind of lurking and creeping a lot, but she's definitely there to get to the point. She's not just kind of hanging out by the bushes like Michael Myers at any point. She has a purpose the whole way through. I'm glad you mentioned the CGI shots, the baby of the fetus in utero. For me, yes, those were goofy shots, but it was almost like, well, the first one came really early, so it was just like, "Oh, look at that's kind of silly looking." But then as the movie went on, when they cut away to that, it was like, okay, I could get a sigh of relief and take a deep breath for a minute. So it was a reprieve from what was happening, a welcome reprieve, and then that lasted for a few seconds, and we were kind of right back into it. I thought that the movie did a great job ratcheting up tension uh, by inserting other people into the mix,
Mhm.
and they mostly seem to have a reason to be there, a good reason. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Were they effective for you in that sense, or were they in the way and prolonging things, or was that appropriately done?
I think it's good, like without getting into spoiling too much of it, like they create new opportunities for like potential escape or potential like they're kind of glimmers of hope until they're not, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And I agree that the film does a good job at justifying their presence. It's not like I don't know, carolers show up or something and then end up in the house for some reason or something silly like that. Like there's pre-established reasons for those people to be there, and I think especially um, the whole sequence before and after the mother shows up is especially clever. I think in how
mhm.
it um, sort of utilizes question marks and ambiguity in terms of who is who. You know.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. I'm gonna see if anybody's talking about this movie. I know some people are, so I'm just gonna see what they're saying really quick. Caveman giving me some love. He says, we all love you. Thank you, Caveman. All right, Kira, that film was intense.
Indeed.
Mika, there we go.
Yeah, something's
Inside
going
was
on in
intense.
France.
Brutal French horror is another level. and family fun, also laughing,
Mhm.
and people just saying hi, and Kira also expressing shock at the family fun. The horror dude is here. Hey, horror dude, what's going on? He says hello. And we got some more hellos back and forth. Spicy says, never seen it, but sounds violent like high tension. It is okay. You brought up high tension. I've seen high tension, so we can talk about it. That's good. Matter of fact, I just had Big Chris from Floyd House Flicks watch high tension a couple weeks ago. Um I think the violence is a little different. You mentioned that sometimes it gets a bit cartoony here, but I think it's even more so in high tension.
Mhm.
And in it's while that's really gory and bloody and all that, I don't think that film is nearly as disturbing as this one
I think
to
this
me.
one's a lot better too. Just my quick high tension hot take is that I don't like it, but I
Okay.
well, I
All right.
like it up until the ending,
So
and then I really
you're
don't.
a big plot hole guy.
It's not necessarily the plot holes, although it is particularly egregious in this instance.
Yeah.
I think in high tension specifically, thematically speaking, the implications of the twist I think are extremely homophobic. Um,
Mhm.
uh, it's rough, but that one I think is fairly effective for like three-fourths of the runtime. But I don't think it's as violent, and I don't think it's as good. But they do both exist in the same kind of movement of films.
Right.
So they are absolutely like one is like I think I think High Tension came out first, so I think it's probably inspired by it.
Okay. And John Parks is here. How you doing, John? He says, I just heard of Inside this year. So on my watch list. Glad you brought it up and appreciate your thoughts on it. Thank you for hanging out, John. John, I should say, not John. I don't know where that came from. Mika, yes, it's very scary. Home is where you're supposed to feel the most secure, and it's terrifying with her pursuit. And yeah, like you mentioned, the pursuit is of not just someone wanting to do harm to her, but actually wanting to take the baby from her body. And
I'm having a
I
thought right now that I think is interesting. It's like a
okay.
double home invasion because the baby's home is inside the stomach.
Wow, that is a good thought. I didn't think of it that way, but that is absolutely true. Yeah, because the exterior home of the mom is being invaded, and yes, the womb is being invaded at times, and really early on, it gets that way. Um, Poor belly button. I'll say that right off the bat. It was that was pretty intense. Let's
The way
see. He says, "Yo, good vibes." All right, so these two women they're facing off, and as we mentioned, it gets really bloody really fast, and at this point, is there any I mean, I know there is, but what did you think was going on? Let me put it that way. First time you saw this, what did you think was going on? Was there anything beyond, as far as reasoning? Did you catch on to the reasoning? Thank you. I'm trying to get my sentences together here. As
it,
far as
it's
reasoning goes, what did you have any inkling of what was coming or why she was doing any of this?
I'm trying to remember because I saw it for the first time like probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I watch a lot of movies, so it can kind of get lost in the ether, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I had any inkling of what was going on there. It just seemed to me like kind of a like a stalker situation, you know. I think this time knowing going in might have been what made it scarier. I don't know because it you can kind of feel like she means business, like there is a real motivation at the heart of what she's
Hmm.
doing. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely a real motivation. And for me, like with last night being my first time, I watched it last night also, and I right away just felt like she definitely meant business just from the get go, because her first introduction to the mom, to Sarah, was just, here, this is what's going to happen and we're going to go for it. So I spent half the movie. Well, the movie runs what, about 85, 90 minutes or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a
Not a
pretty
not a
fast
very
movie.
long movie, and I spent maybe 60 of those cringing. So, and it wasn't necessarily just the violence because I've seen a lot of violent movies. It wasn't it was the implications behind the violence is what really
Mhm.
did it to me throughout the whole experience. And I think that might be what you were alluding to, that now knowing going in what's actually happening makes it a little more real, a little more tangible to you.
Mhm.
Is that fair?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. Um so what, as far as just from a cinematic standpoint, you mentioned the use of light and shadows, and what did you think of just the performances of the two actresses in the movie?
Oh, I think that they're both really great. I think that the main character Sarah does a great job in kind of having to do two very different things, because those are two different skill sets. To be playing like just like a straight character, and then to also just be like completely terrified and covered in makeup and screaming the whole time. Like I think
Hmm.
she does a good job with both. And the mystery woman, she's really great. She has this kind of villainous look about her and like this demeanor of. Also, I just kind of love like her style, like her hair and her clothes. I think just look great, and like, but they also are effective in like concealing her in shadows and stuff. And uh,
Yes.
I don't know, you don't even need to know much about her to like buy her motivations and to buy her presence, you know.
No, you don't. What we eventually find out is sufficient, and even if don't get that, I mean, it's just the fact of what she's trying to do is terrifying enough. That I don't need a whole backstory about her. It's one of those things where the more you know about her will diminish her. I think at least that's what I think. So yeah, I thought that was fine. I didn't need to know everything about this woman. She's there, she's not supposed to be there, and she's doing things you're not supposed to do. That was enough for me. Um, so we move towards, we're getting towards the end, and everything starts cranking up when we get it's already been going 100 miles an hour, and now it's going beyond that when we get to the last 20-ish minutes or so, and then there's another character introduced, and this person really kind of set me off because of the things that this person did wind up doing, and the way that whole scenario played out. um where did you see any of that coming, or where were your thoughts on when that happened?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, which
The
one are you thinking
gentleman at the very end, when she comes down the stairs, there's another person just kind of waiting. He had been, I think he was the one in the cop car.
of? Okay, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it kind of maybe that last bit felt a little bit unnecessary, in that it kind of is a little bit difficult in like its suspension of disbelief. Um, I don't know, it might have been a touch unnecessary.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it was definitely it felt unnecessary, it felt extra, and a movie like this, I guess that's where discussions about misogyny come in and things like that. Do you think the movie went into that area, or no?
Like, do I think that the film is misogynistic or that it sort of explores
Yes.
that in any way? Oh, okay. I think I was doing a little bit of reading on the film, and I saw that the directors had purposefully wanted to avoid the trope of men instigating violence against women as like a very common slasher trope or whatever. And
Mhm.
so they wanted to kind of start with the gender swap, I guess. Not necessarily gender swap, but like uh, exploring a different gender dynamic there and kind of going from there as to assigning the motivations for someone to do something like that. Um, with these types of things, there's always a sort of discussion to be had about how much we are engaging with, enjoying, or reveling in like violence against women, even if it's from other women. Um,
Hmm.
and maybe there's something to be said about like reducing women to their like capacity to bear children, um, where like it's kind of hard to talk about why without revealing the motivations. But this sort of idea of like a woman not being able to bear a child is sort of taking something fundamental away from it. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure that they thought that hard about it. I think it is sort of a
Okay.
vehicle for suspense and for gore, um, and fear. But I think that there are interesting conversations and ideas that we could explore as it relates to two male directors kind of exploring gender dynamics between two women in such a violent context.
Yeah, and yeah, that and my thought was it also plays into another trope of just women not being able to get along, and it's an
Mm,
extremely violent version of that.
mhm,
But it also plays into that. Not to say that the film is just necessarily misogynistic, because I'm like you, I don't think that they thought that deeply about it. It's just the end result. There is a debate to be had. There is a conversation
mhm,
to be had around that topic. And it's interesting that the father of the baby was killed at the very beginning, which is really removing the any patriarchal uh, any of the patriarchy, removing it from the entire situation. Let me put it that way. So like I said, I think there's a discussion to be had, but in the end,
yeah,
I'm with you. I don't think they really were focused on that or thinking, oh, let's do this and hurt women or anything like that.
yeah. I mean, you bring up an interesting point, like the idea of like women sort of competing with each other and like hurting each other to get something. That is
Right.
definitely a trope that we see. And to kind of remove the male presence and have like this idea of like a single mother having to kind of go about the world on her own, only to be challenged and brutalized by another woman. There's certainly an interesting idea there as to how difficult it is for women to navigate the world without like, you know,
Right.
institutions
Yeah.
of patriarchy, whether they be from men or women coming to uh, enact violence, essentially, right?
Right. 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 Totally agreed. I do have a couple people who just came in. We have Miss Caveman is here. She says hello everyone and love the look tonight, Celeste.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Laren, hey Dylan Celeste, good evening. Hey, what's going on, Laren? And got more high tension. High tension is tame compared to inside to me. LOL. I would agree. I completely agree. It's violent, but it's not the same at all. I don't think it's violent, but it's not the same. One is definitely got strong implications, and it feels more brutal. Uh, at least in my opinion. And I'm going to assume in yours, since you're not a big fan of high tension.
Well, yeah, it's more like constant too. Like I think the violence in my attention is broken up a little bit more, um, to kind of help create that tension that's in the title. But this one is pretty relentless, you know.
Yes, yes. We never go more than a minute or two without something just nuts happening, even when you think the last thing was the most nuts thing you'll ever see. So yes, double home invasion is so true. So Mika agrees with your point. And Larry Celeste audio seems a bit off. Just saying, not sure if it was mentioned. It wasn't mentioned. Yeah, I do hear it. I think it seems to be crackling sometimes, and just a
Okay,
little.
yeah, I turned the gain up a little bit before we started because there was a little issue there, but I turned it down a little bit more. So hopefully that has improved or helped a little bit when I saw the comment.
Okay.
If it still happens,
And
let me know. I can turn it down more.
okay. Kira agreeing also nailed it about the double home invasion.
Thank you.
And all right, so seeing if anybody has anything else to say about the movie before I give my final thoughts and wrap this movie up. And Film Addiction is here. What's up, Dell and Celeste? Hey, Film Addiction. And wow, here we go. I think it may K Man says, I think it may have been a case of not having a woman's creative input to even take into account the woman's perspective. That is interesting. I did not look up who the writers were for this movie, so I don't know that there was no female input. But yes, it was definitely a couple of men who directed the movie.
I
But
believe
that is an
one of
interesting
them
point.
wrote the screenplay entirely too. So I
Okay.
mean that's a pretty common thing.
Yeah. I mean, that is. I just didn't look up to see if that was
Mhm.
the case here or not. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give my overall thoughts on Inside. Before I do that, is there any part of the movie that we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention?
Just real quick, I really love the way that the film utilizes lighting. I like how our protagonist is a photographer, and so it ends up playing a lot with like the medium itself. She's taking photographs to illuminate the dark room. You get little flashes of images there, and there's a photograph that she takes of the intruder early on that is really frightening and comes into play later. I just really like how it utilizes light and photography within its own cinematography. I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't bring that up, but yeah, that was an interesting point. Like you said, later on in the movie, she actually uses a camera, uses the flash to light up the room as she's trying to go into it, or and perhaps eliminate the element of surprise on the other end and bring it a little bit towards her, maybe. And yeah, I thought that was used well throughout the movie also. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, for my overall thoughts on Inside, I mentioned that I was not quite all right at the end of the movie. My daughter, who's actually just off camera behind me over here, she watched it with me. She's in college, so
Mhm.
she's not like a little child or anything, but she watched it with me, and she didn't have the same visceral reaction that I had. So at the end of the movie, when she looks over at me, I'm like balled up into a knot, and she's kind of laughing at me. But again, for me, I think just the fact that it was as a pregnant woman is the target of a lot of the violence, and uh, how brutal it was and how graphic it was. All of that kind of made me kind of cringe and recoil. And but with all that said, it's a very well made movie. Um, it's you said, a very well directed in terms of how it's lit, how it's shot, and our actors do a great job, obviously, because they drew me into the film. So it is a very good movie. It is one that I would give a high grade to if I were grading it. Not one I don't think I'm gonna watch it again. I'll be honest. Um, but I did enjoy is the wrong word, but I would say it is a really good film. I've we talked about High Tension. I've also seen Martyrs, and to me, this is more disturbing than Martyrs. And again, a lot of that might have to do with the fact that it's a pregnant woman as the target. I am, however, curious about the American remake just because I want to see how bad they butchered it. So, because I know they butchered it, because they're just not going to do all that in an American film. So I'm kind of curious about that. Um, but yeah, that's really my whole spiel on Inside, and yeah, that's all I have to say about it. And right now, Mika is agreeing, says yes, they play with the lighting. The play with the lighting is very well done. And one question for you before we actually move on to the other film, because we mentioned this all takes place on Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
Is it a Christmas movie?
That's a fun question. I have both a very loose definition of what a Christmas movie is and probably a very strict one. I think
Okay.
that a Christmas movie can be whatever you want it to be, like whatever it is that you like makes you think of the holidays and like puts you in the Christmas spirit. Yeah, sure, it's a Christmas movie. Why not? I think as long as it is set during Christmas or it involves elements of Christmas, you can at least put it on a list and like recommend it for an event like this or something. But in terms of a proper Christmas movie, I don't think so. I think it has to be like not only set during Christmas, but like that has to be a major part of the themes and like the plot, I think, for it to be like a proper like capital C Christmas movie or whatever. So yes, I know, I guess is my only answer,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I'm not gonna recommend this to the family gatherings. Uh, that's for sure. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into the other movie. Mika didn't know they were doing an American remake. It came out in 2017,
Something like
I
that.
believe. I believe it was 2017. Um, so it's already been done. It's I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's somewhere around 20%, 28%, something like that.
It's on Tubi.
And
I almost watched it on accident. Didn't happen.
yeah, I'm gonna watch it on purpose just to see because I've got to see now what they did to this movie because there's just no way. There's just no way they did it for us lame Americans the same way. All right, so we said movies set on Christmas Eve, set around Christmas work. This next movie, the one that I recommended for you to watch, is set on Christmas Eve. Also, actually, the entire movie takes place on that day. And this movie is 2015's completely upside down and backwards Tangerine. So I'm happy and surprised that you picked this movie, and the happy is because I do think it's a really good movie. The surprise part is because I just was surprised you hadn't seen the movie before. Had you heard of the movie, or just this is the first thing just coming out for you? Just whoa, look at that.
So Sean Baker is a person that I am like a fan of. Like I love his social media presence. Like he has a whole house dedicated to his physical media and he collects like original vintage posters, which and he like showcases them. And he has been on the Disconnected channel. He's been on Chasing Labels. Like he is like a weirdo like one of us, and he's just like a really fascinating people or a really fascinating person to listen to. And you can just kind of tell that he gets it. Like he's just a deeply empathetic, thoughtful, and intelligent person. Because like especially knowing the types of films that he makes and the types of people he makes films about, like I'm always a little bit skeptical of like a straight white guy like making films about like black transgender sex workers. Like I'm just like, you better know what you're doing if you're gonna try to do that. And like I could just tell that he knows what he's doing and he knows when to like listen. You know what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
so I've always wanted to check out one of his films, but I just never had like a proper opportunity to. And so when I saw it on your list, I was like, oh, finally, this is my opportunity to finally watch a Sean Baker film. And I had no idea it was set during Christmas, which was fun. But I was like, oh, it's even like the trans one too. That's fun. Let's do this one. So I was really excited to watch it. Uh, yeah.
Okay. Cool. You now you brought up Sean Baker, so I want to start with the main thing that got this film noticed. Uh, Aside from who the characters are, one of the big things about this film, at least in 2015, was that it was one of the first full length features uh, that was shot completely on iPhones. So knowing that, how do you think the look of the movie holds up 8 years later?
That is maybe my biggest. It's maybe not even a criticism because it is. I didn't know it was shot on an iPhone until at the credits when it said that. I was like, oh, that's interesting, and that kind of makes sense. Um, I watched it on Plex. Like I watched, like one of my friends on Plex has it uploaded, and so I watched it that way, which is never the best quality. And so I was already kind of like expecting it to not look the best. I'm curious how it will look on Blu-ray. Um, I mean, the image is perfectly like sharp and clear and everything, but the color grading here is pretty stark. Like there's a lot of like sepia tones and orange and yellows going on here to the extent that it looks kind of unnatural to me. And so for the first like 20 minutes, I was kind of like, this is pretty harsh on the eyes. I don't know. By the end of it, I think I just got so sucked into the characters that it stopped bothering me. But I would love to give it a rewatch on Blu-ray and see how much of that was due to the lower quality stream and how much of that is inherent to the filmmaking
Mm.
process. Um, yeah.
Now, without being an expert on it, I think a lot of it is the filmmaking process. Because even watching it on Blu-ray, I actually just finished watching it before we started here tonight. I've seen the movie before, but I just watched it again to refresh my memory. And it's when you look at it, like you said, it's sharp, but it feels like you're watching a film that's a lot older than it is.
Mhm.
It's it's got that kind of look to it, and the colors are almost almost muted in some cases,
Yeah.
a little washed out maybe.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that kind of gives it that same look. So yeah, it's a 2015 movie, but you'd be forgiven if you thought this movie came out in the 90s or or
Mhm.
early 2000s. Yeah, it just has that look to it. Um, but what it does though, what shooting on the iPhones does is, at least I think, it lends to the immediacy and the urgency of what's happening.
Mhm.
It puts you, really inside the world of these characters. So I don't know if you felt that way or not, or if you had any feelings on that. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Um, but it helped us get to know these characters, and we start off really we with our two main characters. We have Cindy, who just got out of prison, and she is meeting up with her friend. They're at the diner, and just that fast, I drew a blank on her name. Alexandra. Thank you. Okay,
Mhm.
I had to look really quick. Alexandra. She's meeting up with her friend Alexandra. Alexandra is setting up a show. I didn't really give a big synopsis for the movie. So they are two transgender women. They're Cindy, like I said, just got out of prison, and Alexandra is her best friend. And Alexandra tells Cindy that Chester, who is the pimp, because they are sex workers, is her pimp, is cheating on her with a woman, or fish as they call her, with a natural born woman. And this sets Cindy off. I've got to go find him immediately, and I got to handle this now. So she's pretty much storming all over the Hollywood area, trying to find Chester. Meanwhile, Alexandra is doing a couple of things. She's trying to calm her down, trying to get her to not go through with whatever she's gonna do with Chester and or the girl when she finds her, and also trying to get people to come to her performance. She's an aspiring singer, and she's going to perform at a local club later that night. So she's also trying to convince people to come out and see her and make a little money in the process, also on this on the side. So she's got a lot going on, and we follow the two of them through the day. And for me, I don't know that you can call either the main character, but I always gravitate towards Alexandra as that. Do you have any feelings one way or the other on that?
I think she was nominated, like she won a bunch of awards for that performance, and I think
Right,
that
she
they
did. Yes.
always nominated her as the supporting actress. So I think, at
Mhm.
least in the script, Cindy is the main character, but I kind of agree with you that like the heart of the film and like the kind of perspective that I think we're most meant to identify with is Alexandra's. She feels kind of like the soul of the themes of the film and like the most relatable character or the most like down to earth character. Like uh, Cindy's character, I think, kind of dominates a lot of the screen time and uh, a lot of the script. But um, I don't know, she's always so. There's not a lot of time to like calm down with her, or like really
Right.
get to know her in the same way. So I think there's a good case that could be made for either one. But I definitely see where you're coming from and identifying her as the main character.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like you said with Cindy, it's just it's 1,000 miles a minute right from the start of the movie, and you never really get close enough to her. You're just kind of always watching her do things
Mhm. Yeah.
and not necessarily empathizing with her. Whereas with Alexandria, you're empathizing and you're learning about learning about her and really understanding how her day to day activities, or at least this day's activities, are affecting her. Um, where with Cindy, it's she's just out to do something to someone, and you're just kind of watching her from a distance and going, okay, she's really off the rails right now. She pulled it back just slightly here, and so on and so forth. And you mentioned the actress did win a bunch of awards for the movie. And what did you think of her performance? And
Oh,
we're
I thought
talking about we're talking about Maya
mhm.
uh, Maya Taylor. Sorry, I was looking at her last name. Maya Taylor, who played Alexandra.
Yeah, I thought she was wonderful. I thought that she kind of embodied a lot of different emotions throughout the film. I think that my favorite sequence is maybe uh, from when she performs to when she's on the bus afterwards, and she kind of, I don't know, the scene really makes me sad. Where like the other two girls are kind of like Cindy kind of reveals that she had to pay to do that, and like nobody showed up, and then the other girls like making fun of her for like having to pay just to like be a singer for a second. It made me really sad,
Right.
but you could kind of see the kind of sadness in her eyes is like that one moment of like kind of, I guess, spotlight and glamour and like um authenticity was something that she had to pay for. Like, I don't know, there's a
Mhm.
lot that I think she conveys in that one scene.
Yeah, yeah, she does, and that is one of my favorite sequences also because yeah, like you said, you just feel so much for her at that point. You're sad for her, and almost realizing that I don't want to say that it's she's in a position she'll never get out of, but it starts to feel kind of hopeless for really for all of them going forward. Even from that moment, forget not even getting to the end of the film, but even from that point, it's just like we're all just kind of doing this and not going anywhere. We're kind of on a hamster wheel with it. Um, so yeah, she really for me, like I said, she's the main character. She's the soul of the movie, as you say. Uh, the other actress, I thought really did a good job. Like you said, it's just one note, straightforward the entire time. The most interesting character, aside from Alexandra, to me, was the actually two interesting characters was the cab driver, Razim, I think his name was, or Razik, and his mother-in-law, who has a much smaller part.
Mhm.
But um, what'd you think about the cab driver?
Um, I didn't know why we were following him for a bit. I was like, this seems different or not. Like this seems like to be a different story entirely. And they
Right.
do end up converging fairly quickly. I think that his character is really fascinating. I think he's really funny. Like he has my favorite, like my most like laugh out loud moment in the film.
Mhm.
When he picks up the cisgender sex worker and is upset about that. That's like
Yes.
my favorite part. It's so funny. But yeah, I think without, it's difficult to discuss his character without getting into some graphic or frank discussions of his sexuality. But like, I think it's interesting that how he sort of escapes from the box that I think his culture and his family and his life has put him in is to like be submissive to transgender women and like he
Mhm.
prefers to give rather than receive oral sex in these transactions. I'm kind of like he is really funny and I do like I like him a lot, but I also just feel really bad for him. I'm just kind of like it's clear that he comes from very strict uh, gender roles and like uh, um, ethics, like a very specific code of ethics that he feels he has to uphold. Like he's definitely doing the thing that you're supposed to do, like as an American immigrant, like you're supposed to get a job, you're supposed to have a kid, you're supposed to support your family. He's doing all of that,
Mhm.
um, but it's clearly not fulfilling him or authentic to his true self. And like I think that like his sexuality is clearly a little bit more fluid than um, he was probably brought up to understand it. I don't know, like to just be blunt about it, I was kind of like, man, you're kind of bumming me out. Like you can suck dick if you want to. Like there's lots of people who will let you do that for free. You don't have to pay for it. Like
Right, right,
if that's
right.
what you like it's like it's okay. It just kind of made me. I thought his wife was a fascinating character too, in that she is aware and like is not thrilled about it, but also understands that he's fulfilling his role as it was assigned to him, and she kind of is like,
Mm,
yeah, I get it. He's got to have something else sometimes, you
right,
know?
right. And and this is good because now I'm just giving you another perspective or my perspective, and just to give you a little bit of a background. Yes, I'm quite a bit older than you, so and also straight male. So and I grew up with those pretty strict gender rules, and as the years have gone over, I've become more accepting and more accommodating, all those kinds of things. So, but watching it, I'm also been married for a really long time, also. So it's like it's when I watch him, it's like okay, I get that that is who you are, but do we have to continue to drag the family along with you? It's either kind of if that's who you are, that's fine. Just you don't have to pretend so much. Let me put it that way. You don't have to pretend. It's like okay, you don't have to fulfill those roles. Yeah, you have a child now. Yes, take care of the child, but you don't necessarily have to keep up appearances, so to speak.
Yeah,
And but I appreciate what you're saying that he's trying to do all those things that he's supposed to do. So he's got a sense of obligation about it. So yeah, I understand that.
I think
Um,
that that middle ground that you're describing that ends up hurting more people than it's worth is like, I think a temporary state for a lot of people. Um, and if he does, we're talking about a fictional character, but if he does end up understanding himself as like a queer person or
okay.
somebody who needs like polyamory or something like that, or somebody who
Okay.
discovers that
And
he's attracted to
just so you know, I'm still having a little trouble hearing you sometimes, kind of going up and
oh,
down.
okay, sorry. I'm not sure what's going on tonight. Let me is that better?
So far.
Okay, okay, let's keep it here and see how that goes. um
All right.
but like I think for people like that, for people who break out of societal expectations or like normative sort of social standards, and for whom that behavior is punished, like clearly it's not okay that he like wants to do this or that he is engaging in it, at least in the way that he's doing it. And I think for
Hmm.
people like that, there comes a breaking point where you either continue. I mean, there is the option to just keep going on as is and hurting people and lying and all this other stuff that is not sustainable. Um, but I think eventually you reach a point where you have to um, either choose to just fully embrace that part of yourself and just like realize that you can't be honest with yourself and have this family, and you have to like kind of go all in on your like freak side or whatever, or you
Hmm.
have to just kind of give that up and stay the course
And
as it is expected of you, you know?
yeah, and that's kind of where I am. I'm like, dude, just make the choice already and just do it. Just do it. Just stop the back and forth. Just stop. And that's my big issue with him. So, I've seen it a couple times now, and I've just do not like him for that reason. It's like, okay, just do it, and it would be so much better for everybody involved. Um, his mother-in-law is for me, she's part of what you're describing as the reason why he has to keep up appearances, the strict background, the upbringing, the tradition, and all those things. uh but I think she's also kind of funny in that, and in the way that she does things a little bit. and kind of crafty and kind of pushing her seniority around.
Mhm.
So I had a good time with her, even though um, I think she had her daughter's best interest at heart, is what it comes down to. Whether or not we agree with what she was doing or what she was saying or what she was thinking when the movie ended, and that's kind of where I was with her. I don't know if you paid her any mind at all because again, she has a small part in the movie. Um, but yeah, do you have any thoughts on her or the wife? You gave a little bit on the wife.
Yeah, I think that the wife is the one who was the most interesting in that dynamic. In that I was, I think, understandably expecting her to like blow up about it or like be really hurt, devastated by it, but she's kind of just like, Mom, I know it's like a thing. It happens. It's fine. Like it's. I'm not stoked about it, but like we're aware. Like she's kind of letting him have this sort of um, because I think what you could tell from her character is that she doesn't want him to like leave the family and pursue this lifestyle entirely. Like she wants to kind of let him have it both ways because she knows that she can't fully suppress it, but she also doesn't want him to leave because he is like the breadwinner and he is, I mean, probably a source of like love and security and all these other things. But her mom seems to be the one who is really pushing this kind of very rigid sort of lifestyle and social dynamic.
Right.
Um, and I think that that is like understandable. Like I understand why she's doing the things she does. It kind of creates a lot of tension, obviously. I think that she maybe goes a little further than is appropriate in like making her daughter's life her business. But um, again, it's like I'm not shocked by any of the things that she does, like
Right.
the way that
Right.
she
Right.
does
Right.
it.
Right. All right. Just see what other people are saying about it. Mika loves Tangerine. Great film. And we got Film Addiction just saying, hey. Vin was here. What's going on, Vin? Says I love Sean Baker films. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I've seen another Sean Baker film. I'd have to look them up. What else he's done? Just FYI, Tangerine is also on Showtime. I do not have Showtime, so I do not know. And yes, the search for Chester. So let's get back into the search for Chester. Well, let me get Mika's other comment in here because he did make a good point. I agree that Alexandra feels more like the soul of the film. You really get to know her as a character more. Absolutely. And Patrick is here. What's going on, Patrick? Says greetings from Have Cheetah Will View. And we got another new person, Christopher Sienko. I hope I said that right. And the way that the cab driver ties himself up in knots trying to break out of the family dinner to meet his gal felt so real. Just the white knuckled need of the whole leaving ritual was perfectly shown. And yeah, that was one of the more tense scenes in the movie was him really just trying to get out of the house. And that was very, very well done. And thank you for coming by, Christopher. I appreciate it. And what films are we talking about, Patrick? We talked about Inside from 2007. There are lots of movies named Inside, as I found out when I was searching for it. This one was the French film from 2007, French horror film. And now we're talking about Tangerine from 2015. All
I
right.
think my audio should be improved quite a bit. Is it a lot better now?
It is a lot better right now. That
Okay.
sounds much, much better. All right.
Okay. I'm feeling a touch embarrassed because I've never used this platform that we're on before, and so I forgot that it's not going to default to my microphone, so it was defaulting to my earbuds as the input.
Ah,
And
got it.
so
Okay.
I'm a little bit horrified to think what the rest of this must have sounded like, but hopefully it sounds okay now.
Okay. Yeah, you do sound a lot better. Brian, anything on Showtime is now Paramount Plus, by the way. I don't have Paramount Plus either. I don't know if you do or not.
I don't.
And
Um, yeah, shout
Chris
out
is
to Chris Senko. He's a patron of mine, actually, so thank you for being here.
okay, cool. He says you're welcome to me, and you said my odd last name just right. Good, very cool. I'm glad all those years of college paid off. All right. So The big we talk about the search for Chester. That's really the catalyst for everything that happens in the film. Um, but we don't get to Chester until late in the movie. But before that, we get to Dinah. We eventually find out her name is Dinah after hearing every possible name that starts with a
Hmm.
D throughout the movie. Um, well, what do you think about that whole situation as Cindy is dragging Dinah around the streets?
It's it's a lot, you know. Um, I think her character is really it's multifaceted in a lot of ways. I think she kind of has this like submissive nature to her where she doesn't really. I mean, I think that she's probably capable of fighting back more than she does. Um, I mean, there's plenty of moments where she's not even being watched or even
Right.
actively grabbed or anything, where she still stays around. I think that she has just like you can tell by the way that Chester treats her. Like she kind of has been accustomed to being dragged around and like not having a ton of agency, you know. Um, and I think it's interesting how she tries to assert some kind of power or like take Cindy down a peg by just like kind of making her feel stupid for even thinking that they had a relationship in the first place.
Yes.
Even though later you come to find out that they do have quite a bit of like evidence to that. Like he has her name tattooed on him and everything. Like it's not like, you know, like she is special in some regards. Even if he
Mhm.
doesn't really respect her in the way that he should. Like it is different how he treats her versus how he treats Dinah, you know. But I think the last scene is especially really great. Like she's kind of been a means of for comedy the whole time, and kind of treated as like she's definitely looked down on by the other characters, and then you kind of have this tender moment of humanity for her at the end when because she's been away from her post, so to speak, the whole time, like
Yeah.
um she loses a place to stay and she just kind of has to sit outside in like the cold or in the elements, I guess.
Yeah.
She hasn't even had her shoe the whole time. Like she kind of gets put through the ringer, you know.
She does, and she's one of many characters. Like at the in the end, kind of feel sorry for her because of what you just described. Um, and yeah, there's we talked about the whole situation with the cab driver and his family, and we talked about Alexandra, and to a much lesser extent, I also felt sorry for the donut shop owner who had to
I
deal with
did
all the
too.
chaos.
I was like, man, I've had to work retail before. Like, I get it. This is not fun for anybody.
Exactly, exactly. But you also mentioned that the Dinah and Cindy's interactions as a vehicle for comedy. The first time I watched this, I watched it as a drama,
Hmm.
and then when I started looking into the movie a little bit, I kept seeing it everywhere categorized as a comedy. Would you categorize it as a comedy?
Absolutely. I think it's both, but I like when it was over, I said to both my partners, I was like, that's one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Like, I was dying at so many parts in this. I think it is hysterical. Um, but it is also like has this really tender and like beautiful moments and then also some pretty disturbing moments. Like it does a lot of things. And I think that it's honest in its portrayal of like how people in tough situations are often very funny because these are the
Mhm.
types of things you have to do to get through, you know, and to cope with um, the hand you've been dealt and to kind of create solidarity and community. You know, a lot of that comes through or comes from comedy, you know.
Mhm.
Um, in
Mhm.
terms of Dinah's character, there's also a really beautiful scene with, I'm forgetting her name, Cindy,
Yeah.
in the bathroom when they're doing each other's when she does her makeup, and they just kind of have a moment together. It's kind of like a moment of solidarity, even though they're ostensibly at odds and competing over the same like man. Like at the end of the day, they're in the same position, and um, occupying a lot of the same spaces of marginalization and kind of have a moment to themselves for
Mhm.
that. That's one of my favorite scenes in the film.
Now, I watched that scene, and I think I've read it a little bit different, and I the way I read it was, yeah, it seemed like a tender moment, but it also seemed like Cindy's still trying to assert a bit of dominance.
Hmm.
And so so it was a little odd to me in that case, because it was like, if there were like small instances where Dinah would pull back and Cindy would kind of either give her a look or
Hmm.
advance further. And so it felt, even though it's played off as tender, it still felt aggressive to me.
Hmm. That's definitely a way you could read it. I think it is ambiguous, as I think a lot of the film is. But yeah, I hadn't considered that, but that's an interesting perspective. I think there is probably some element where she is maybe asserting her dominance in a more tender way than usual. I don't know.
Mhm. Mm. Okay. Yeah, and all art is subjective, as we like to say. So, but yeah, that's just the way that particular thing played out for me. And we eventually do get to meet Chester. And for this particular movie, I know, again, I don't necessarily want to spoil anything, but I'm okay if we do, because I don't think spoiling what happens changes your enjoyment of this particular movie.
Yeah, it's not a
So,
super plot driven film. It's really just about the characters.
right, right. So if there's, don't worry about giving too much away or anything like that if you have something to say about it. But yeah, I mentioned the donut shop scene. We eventually find Chester at donut time, and it pretty much all hell breaks loose because the cab driver has finally gotten away, and he's gotten there, and mom-in-law has figured out, tracked him down, and and everything's just going down at the donut shop. And how, for you, how did this scene feel? How did it play out? Not necessarily
Uh,
details wise how to play out, but how did it feel for you as you were watching it?
I mean, it's chaotic, right? Like it's hard to keep up with each individual. Like it's a scene that I think warrants a rewatch just to pick up on every little comment that is made because there's just so many good jokes or like good lines being thrown out in like a rapid fire kind of torrential sort of I don't know, like outpouring that it was I was definitely missing a few.
Hmm.
It's it's not great for my the way that my brain processes information. It could be a little stressful, a little chaotic, but I think it makes sense. Like there was just a lot of a lot of threads being resolved all at once in a way that was hectic.
Yeah. Fritzky is here. He says, "Yo, what's going on, Fritzky?" And Mel, my killer podcast, is here. He says, "What's up, Dallas Celeste?"
Hey
Hey,
Mel, what's up?
everyone. Hey, Mel. And so I'm gonna don't knock Vigo's flat penis. You guys get plenty
I,
of gratuitous nudity in most movies we got. What did I miss? What did I
I
miss something
missed
in the
something
chat?
too. I'm not sure because I was like I must have missed a chat somewhere because I
Yeah,
am
I don't
absolutely
I
in
don't
favor
see it.
of flaccid penis in films, but I'm just like I don't remember bringing that up, so I'm a little bit
I don't
confused.
either. Okay, we gals and done guys need a little something too. Hey, no, you got some in this movie, that's for sure.
Hmm.
I don't remember bringing it up, but I do. I know there's some there.
Yeah.
Now I lost my train of thought completely. Sure, penis wrecked my brain here. Um,
The diner scene, the final chaos.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I think it's a testament to the writing, because it's pretty easy to kind of resolve these things one at a time, like have two characters talk and then another two characters talk, but having it done so chaotic, the writing and the directing, really, because you got to
Hmm.
make it all make sense in the end,
Hmm.
and just having everybody just kind of throwing their little 2 cents in left, right, and center. It's pretty tough to do,
Yeah,
as
it
far as
is.
writing goes, and make it make sense, and make it come across in a way that the audience can deal with it and not just automatically tune it out as just a bunch of people yelling.
Hmm.
And I thought that scene was extremely well done for that.
It's a tough scene to
You
shoot
know,
too, you know, and to block, like to get everybody in position and
yeah,
make sure
because
that everybody's on cue and get everything that you need in the shots is you're right, I hadn't considered how challenging that would be on a technical level to pull off, but it certainly is.
yeah, I imagine it took at least a few takes to get that all right.
Mhm.
Because even if the actors are all doing their thing properly, then you got to make sure you're getting everybody on camera at the right time to when they're saying their 2 cents, or if you just want
Mhm.
it to come from left field. And then again, you got to remember we're working with iPhones, so it's not like you're gonna get you have this super big camera that you can
Yeah.
shoot everything from. So yeah, I think they did a really good job with that. Um, yeah, we got a bunch of people just saying hi back and forth. And Amika says, yes, in the end, agreed. You do feel sorry for her. I think we're talking about Dinah right there.
Mhm.
Um, as you brought up the scene where she eventually has to go back to the hotel where she was dragged out of. Christopher's. I also love that the whole closing credits just has the sound of the laundromat running quietly underneath. It's such a poignant finale. It
Yeah, I
is. It
love
is
that
a
too.
really, yeah, really good finale. Um, and it's a good juxtaposition with the rest of the movie, which you has a lot of music playing throughout the
Mhm.
movie, and they make a lot of transitions with the music. And at times it's really bombastic, and other times it's classical. Sometimes it's a little quieter. Did you notice the use of music in the movie, or how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is really abrasive and really like um modern, you know?
Yeah,
Uh
yeah,
like there's not uh I think it definitely dates the film for sure. Like when you hear like dubstep or something like that, or like a very specific like style of club music playing. But then you also have like I think that there's a traditional like there is a score written for it. At least that's what it sounded like, unless there's just pieces that have been borrowed. But there's some really beautiful music in it. But then there also is that kind of um, this the styles of music that I think our characters would likely be listening to kind of interspersed as well. And I think there's a lot of good timing in terms of the needle drops in this too.
yes,
There's one in particular where like she's sitting on the bus stop and she just says fuck it and then the beat kind of kicks in and it's
yeah.
just
Beat kicks
really
in,
good.
and that was one of those transitions where it was playing something classical, and
Hmm.
right at that point the music changed completely. And yeah, that was really really well done, so I appreciated that. Mika could say it's a dramedy. Karen and I had a ball with this one. Great humor in this one. And yeah, I think watching it this time around, I was more in tune with the comedy than I was the first time. Like I said, the first time I watched it more as just a straightforward drama that had a few funny moments,
Hmm.
and I think I was maybe a little busy, preoccupied, being sad for people that I didn't quite get all of the jokes.
Hmm.
But this time around, knowing what's going in, uh, I definitely had more fun watching the movie. Chris, on the other side of the coin, the scene where Cindy just goes terrassing around town, that's around that sex motel room, surprising each coupling as she goes to grab Dinah, is just straight up hilarious. I will agree with that. Um, so for me, that scene, the funniest parts of that scene were the guys there, all the Johns. They were the funniest parts of it
Hmm.
because they were all just kind of like mortified by what was
Hmm.
happening, either trying to hide or just not knowing what to do at all. And then the one guy comes out like, "Should we call the cops?" Like,
Yeah, that was good.
no, oh, you moron! What's wrong with you? So that was a pretty fun scene. Did you expect any of that to happen when she knocked or kicked in that door?
No, because I mean, we're talking about like different couples occupying like the same room even like that's a bit of a cramped awkward situation going on there and that scene especially is really disorienting I think in that there's a lot to take in very quickly. um
Hmm.
Another one that probably would warrant a rewatch just to pick up on all the little details and all the visual gags and stuff. Another one that I imagine was very difficult to pull off on a technical level, kind of following a tracking shot and making sure you get everything right. And, you've got people in intimate and compromising positions that you have to account for. Probably another challenging sequence to shoot, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine so. And that room was not very big.
No.
It was, you had the main room, you had the bathroom, and I think someone in the closet or
Hmm.
something like that. It was like four couples in there, so it was pretty tough to do. Uh, Chris says dramedy for sure because there's some straight up heartbreak in this film, and yeah, and like I said, my first viewing, that's really kind of what I was more focused on. Patrick says zoinks. I guess he's talking about the flaccid penis. And yes, there's definitely some heartbreak. There are some very tender moments in this one. All right, so we can get ready to end this one. Are there any other parts of the film that you wanted to bring up that we did not?
I just think that every character is super complex. Like, there are little moments here and there where you see, like, the good and bad sides of each of these people. Like, even like Cindy, like a character that we've been rooting for and following and enjoying this whole time. Like, towards the end, she says something pretty racist about the Chinese woman working the donut shop, and it's just like
Yeah.
little things like that that you see. There's also a lot of like really casual transphobia throughout that is really accurate to the way that people talk to trans feminine people, and like you can tell in some of these moments they don't even realize that they're doing it, or they're doing it in a way that is subtly like asserting their institutional power. Like, it's kind of just like reminding them that, like, hey, I know this about you and I can weaponize that. um like, you don't really get like a very overt, well, the police are pretty bad, but the
Yeah.
ending scene with like the straight up hate crime is like um pretty upsetting and pretty jarring, because up until then you're kind of dealing mostly in just like the casual everyday trans misogyny
Mhm.
that people experience. And so it kind of makes that last moment all the more effective, in that like you're already kind of dealing with a lot of little things, and then just the idea or the reminder that bigger things like that can and do still happen is uh it's a pretty rough way to end the film, but they turn it around into something really beautiful. um just some disjointed concluding thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, that's totally fine. Um, so really, my only thing left is just to ask you what your overall thoughts on the movie, and by that, really, I mean, you've talked about it a lot, but did you like it? Did you not like it? How much you liked it? Or anything else? If you have any other thoughts that pop into your brain about it.
Oh, this is easily like a candidate for like a top 100 list or something for me. I think like this is a very strong like 9 out of 10 for me. I think it's one that I absolutely would like to revisit. I know that excuse me, Second Sight has a pretty nice edition of it that I've been eyeing for a while, and now I just have more motivation to pick it up. I would love to watch it with a director's commentary on it. I think that would be really insightful. Uh, yeah, I absolutely loved it. I both my partners loved it a lot too. It was overall a certified banger winner for sure.
Cool. I'll take that as a win. So I think we actually both had wins because I really did think Inside is very well done, extremely well done. Um,
I
and
liked
you
Inside better
appreciate
the second time for what it's worth. Like, I was less focused on the gore and it was just more scary. Like, I bumped up my rating the second time I watched it.
okay, okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be brave enough for a second watch, but we'll see. We'll see. Uh, and we got one more person that's popped in. Scottish Geek guys, howdy folks, howdy
Hello.
Scottish Geek guy. And before we end it all, like I said before, just everybody in the chat that you see, all the names that you see, almost everybody, they have YouTube channels and Instagram. Follow them with lots of good content creators out there. and I appreciate all you guys coming here. And I'm going to turn it back over to Celeste, and just to say or tell us whatever it is you want to tell us about you and your channel, what you have coming up, or any of those things. So the floor is all yours.
Well, first, I apologize for my amateur hour sound problems here. Uh, I feel it is very unfortunate that I neglected to double check my audio. I've been having audio issues lately. I don't know what's going on, but there's that. But in any case, I hope it turned out at least intelligible the whole way through, and I'll be interested to rewatch this and see how it went. And I think it was a good conversation overall. Like the technical issues aside, I think that this was a very fruitful and productive conversation. And I'm very happy to have done it. I'm very grateful for the invitation. Yeah, if you are at all interested in in-depth discussions on cult and art house films, you can look up my channel name, Celeste de la Cabra. It should show up if I've done something right. Um, I also have a Patreon where I do exclusive content and send out postcards and such things for higher level patrons. Yeah, we try to keep a relatively consistent video upload schedule, but I've come to accept that they take as long as they take. Like I try to put a lot of effort into each one. So uh, yeah, hopefully you find something you like over there, and be happy to have you.
All right. And I'm going to second your thoughts about your own channel. Yes, definitely go check out Celeste's channel, uh, in-depth conversations. I particularly enjoy when you just take a movie and just dig all the way into it. So I look forward to those. If you're that type of person who enjoys those, then definitely go over to Celeste de la Cabra and find out. Mika just says, great conversation. Thank you,
Thank
Mika.
you.
Appreciate it. And I'm going to say thank you to my guests for coming on. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I really appreciate that. Maybe we can do it again
Hmm.
someday. And the way this thing works, we might meet up on someone else's channel at some other at some other point.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. As for what's coming up on this channel, guys, Laren, well, comment from Laren first is this was great. Thanks to you both. Celeste, the audio did not affect anyone's enjoyment of the discussion tonight. Thank you, Laren.
I appreciate
Really
that, and I hope
appreciate
so.
that. Yeah, I hope so. Patrick also says it's a great stream. As far as this channel goes, I don't have any major plans. I do have a couple of videos that I'm going to release over the next couple of weeks. So I'm working on some videos that I'm going to release over the next couple of weeks between now and the end of the year. I think the biggest things is at some point I'm going to do a David Fincher tier ranking because I saw Killer and now I've seen all his movies. MCU one probably, and maybe dig into the collection, let you guys know some of the things I have since I don't really do those kinds of videos. And it's the end of the year, so of course, best and worst of 2023 is coming at some point.
Hmm.
This is the last movie swap of 2023, unless something changes, and maybe I can convince one of my family members to join me, which I doubt because they all laugh at me when I do when I suggest it. In that case, we'll be back in January, and I don't know who's coming up next at that point. But that's all I have for everybody tonight. Again, thanks for coming out. Thank you again to Celeste. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
And